Welcome to the News Roundup. Spiel Essen has ended, and not only are all my stories going to be heavily related with Spiel Essen, but they're all going to be from Germany. I guess this is the German week of the News Roundup. So let's get to it for the week of October 9th, 2023. Now, let's talk about Spiel Essen. I don't know whether they changed their name, by the way, or whether I'm just having a weird Bernstein Bear moment and just in my head, I always call it Essen Spiel. So, apologies in advance with the number of times I'm going to screw that up. But regardless, it just happened. And one of the things that we always like to look at, especially in these years, right now at least, is how big did it grow or shrink after COVID? Now, we can safely say, or good news say, that it is the largest it's been since COVID. It hasn't beaten its pre-COVID numbers, with its largest last in 2019 with about 209,000. However, this year it was 193,000. So, not too shabby. And I do want to note the other conventions I mentioned that have actually broken records, with Gen Con and the UK Game Expo, are around 70,000 and 53,000 respectively, meaning that the two combined were still smaller than this year's Spiel Essen. That, of course, is great news as we want to see the things grow. They also tried out a new system where they at least, I don't know if companies chose or they decided to sort them into like family games, mid-weight, heavy strategy games. So you could sort of go down an aisle that was more geared towards the style of gaming you're going for, rather than just fitting all the games where, for example, Gen Con, you sort of know certain booths are always around the same area. This way you could, if you're just in the miniatures, go to the miniatures area. And while initially, and I would agree as well, I can think of plenty of companies that have a variety. They don't just only do heavy games or something. It sounds like this still worked out well. So it sounds like overall it was a positive change. The one thing though that is it's disappointing, and this is going back, is the AI artwork and meeps. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I had a story about that in last week's news roundup. Basically, they had a contest to name their new mascot Meeps as a cat, but a lot of the tickets and the pre-Spiel Essen material people saw showed AI artwork. And at the convention, from what I've read, it does seem Meeps did appear on some merchandise, and I don't know if you're guaranteed, but there were free Meep miniatures you can get with your ticket. But from what I can tell, the AI art was the main component, or at least the most recognizable. Granted, it could also be biased that it's just their faces stick in your mind, whether you like it or not. So they did say they're going to think about this more, and I'm hoping that they realize that the AI art in particular is not something that a lot of people enjoy. Yes, it's really easy to do and to make things short notice, but unless you can say like, oh, we've trained this on these specific artists, they're all getting credit and getting paid for it. It does feel like you're also shortcutting a lot of people's work. And like I said, those faces can be just like a little bit too like uncanny valley disturbing. Regardless of whether you think the AI art is too creepy or not, hopefully in future Spiel Essens, Meeps is going to get more representation. As I understand, this is their first year, but this is designed to be their mascot. They should be really recognizable and also just seen almost everywhere there. I mean, I can feel that with Genevieve, the dragon for Gen Con, is usually not too hard to spot, be it as a mascot on posters or on merchandise. Mascot and art aside, it does seem that Spiel Essen was an overall success, and hopefully in either maybe next year or a future year, they'll finally be able to break the pre-COVID numbers and continue to grow as a large gaming convention and celebration. Now, this could have been wrapped up in previous story because it does come from Spiel Essen, but I felt like it deserved its own timestamp, and that is the winner for this year's Deutscher Spiel Award. This is different from the Spiel des Jahres, in which that, I believe, pulls people from not only Germany, but Austria and Switzerland, and this one is strictly from the German marketplace. There are two awards they do, one that is the normal one and one that is for younger audiences, your kid award, so to speak. Now, the kid one is actually the same as the Kinderspiel this year, with it being Mysterium Kids, so that's usually a pretty good sign. However, this year's main winner was actually Planet Unknown, which was up for the Kennerspiel this year, but lost out to challengers. Now, it is interesting that it did go up against Dorfromantik here, which was the Spiel des Jahres winner, and it did beat it out here. Now, they do list out all 10 of the awards, but outside of second and third, which are like the main competitors for first, I don't know if they're ranking from the lists I've seen of like actually how they rank them or just alphabetical or something. Basically, I can't confirm if they're in judge order or just arbitrary list styles. So whether 8 beats out 10 or whether it just happens for some arbitrary statistic, like I said, alphabetical or something like that, that it's in that order, I cannot confirm. We can confirm, though, that Planet Unknown did actually take home the award. So congratulations to them for winning the award here, and as well as Mysterium Kids for actually winning both of the awards for the kid audience. So if you're looking for a game for kids, that seems to be a definite huge green flag for you to pick up Mysterium Kids. Segueing with connected stories, and in no way because that this is just what's happening this week, we've got reports about the German marketplace and how board games are doing there. This is important as one, because Spiel Essen's there, board games are pretty centralized around Germany. It's one of the major areas when it comes to board gaming. And in 2022, the marketplace dropped about 5% in sales for board games there, which is not the greatest thing to hear. However, this year it seems to have risen up 6%, so hopefully returning to a positive trend. Now, things can always change, but I did read that they believe this positive trend will grow into 2024, though they put it at more of a modest 1.3% increase there. This, of course, is a good sign, especially with the new Spiel information, and I don't think this calculated Spiel Essen at all in there, so that could have made it grow even more so. But interesting enough, the article that I read about this also mentioned that there's a survey of why people play board games, and the top reasons were it's good for social events and meeting up, personal growth and health, and for fun was fourth. So I wonder if there are German players out there who view board gaming the same way I view jogging, in which that you don't like it at all, but you need to do it every day for your health. Now, with all this good news stories about Germany, it's time to talk about something a bit more depressing to balance things out. This is actually going to be an update on the HABA story I talked about before in last week's news roundup. If you didn't watch it, they had some money issues. They're stopping production of some things. It seems their games are still going strong, so to speak, because they're going to focus more on the toys. They said toys, they didn't say games. That said, to my knowledge, they were at Spiel Essen. This is a whole Spiel Essen episode. And they had a lot of games there. So I don't know if they actually sold well there. I would be very curious to hear how that turned out for them. But as for now, we know they were there with plenty of games. What we do know as well, unfortunately, is they are going to fire about 600 people or lay off 600 people. I believe that's technically better than what I reported. I'm remembering 50, but at this point, there's so many companies I've heard doing layoffs and stuff. I don't know if I'm mixing it up. But regardless, that's still quite a bit of people. Now, what will this mean? Is that part of the reconstruction? Because remember, they're working with a lawyer. We don't know, but we'll see whether this is all HABA needs to do in order to keep the boat afloat, or if we're going to have to hear about more cuts, be it from production lines, games, or even more of their workforce having to be shrunk down. All right, let's get to game announcements now. There are probably actually so many out there just because, Spiel Essen happened. So these are just a small handful of interesting titles I picked up on that you may find interesting. First, we have the Wingspan Guest Artist Pack expansion. This actually does not feature new cards. Rather, they had a contest for you to draw birds, and these are going to have, while mechanically the same as whatever the card does in the previous expansion or base set, will have new art for you to spice up your game. Then, for those of you who like horror movies, they just announced a Saw board game. It's specifically titled Saw: The Jigsaw Trials. Now, we don't know much else besides player count, I believe is 2 to 6, as well as the total length says 75 minutes. However, I imagine that this game box is actually not a game. Rather, it will be, you can open it up and it'll tell you how to trap players at your house in order for you to actually play through your backlog of games you haven't touched yet. Reiner Knizia's Medici is getting a new revitalized version, and those who worked on the Heat Pedal to the Metal board game, which has either gone close or won awards, it's been a very popular board game this year, has apparently designed a new game with a 7-year-old called Aqua. This seems to be about making a sustainable habitat for different kinds of animal tiles, though it seems to be more reef-based, at least in terms of how you're building, but plenty of different species, so still aquatic animals, that's always fun. And then finally, this one, it might not be called this in the future. It sounds like the name isn't finalized, but it's called Harmonize. This is actually from the people who made Mysterium and Dixit, And a lot of people are comparing it to Azul, in which you'll be collecting colored tokens and adding them to your board. So we'll learn more about this in the future, as well as whether it'll keep the name Harmonize. But that's just a quick list of some games, as well as lots of news from Germany. Let me know your thoughts on any of these stories or any of these announcements. Were you at Spiel Essen? Let me know what your thoughts were there. Did you do anything besides wait in line for Disney Lorcana? I'd love to hear about it. Let me know in the comments down below. But for now, I'm Will, and this has been the News Roundup. I'll see you next week.